Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Cordon, the place where every cricketer wants to be. I'm your host, Callum Dunk, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode. Well, the Ashes is getting underway on Friday, filming on Monday, and I can not wait for this series. There's been so much talk, so much anticipation leading into this Test series. Obviously, England have been more successful in Test cricket since the last time they were out here in 21-22 under Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes. So we finally get to see Baz Ball finally come down under. Obviously, it's a 5 Test match series beginning in Perth on Friday, then moving to Brisbane, which will be a day-night Test match. Adelaide's got the day game this year. As an Adelaide local, I'm very disappointed by the fact that it's not a day-night Test match. I think we do day-night cricket so well, and it deserves to stay with us. But moving on, obviously Boxing Day on in Melbourne, and then finishing with the 5th Test match at the SCG. Fingers crossed that it's not rain affected like it has been every other year. I guess the key talking point so far is the injury to Pat Cummins, his stress fracture. Looking likely he's going to miss the first couple of Test matches. I would be highly doubtful that he'd be playing in Brisbane. I think the plan would be to get him right for at least Adelaide, and whether he's able to play, the last 3 Test matches back to back to back, I think there's a strong possibility that he plays in Adelaide and misses Melbourne and then comes back in for the New Year's Test match in Sydney. So I think they need to be really cautious with Cummins. Even if they lose the first Test match, I think you can't rush him back from a stress fracture. It's a very serious injury. I've had stress fractures myself. I know how painful they are and how difficult they are to come back from, and that's someone who's just playing local cricket. Obviously Pat's a high quality international cricketer. And the temptation would be to play him as soon as possible, but you just need to look after him and make sure that he's fit and firing later in the series, because there's going to be a massive workload on Scott Boland and Mitchell Starc, with Josh Hazlewood being ruled out of the first Test match at least with a hamstring strain. So unfortunately did that in Sheffield Shield while playing for New South Wales. And Starc, he's got a good record when he leads the bowling attack for Australia without Cummins and Hazlewood. Boland's obviously a class operator and takes his opportunity, and there's probably a good chance that Scott Boland can play all 5 Test matches this summer. The first 2 Test matches are relatively back. Well, there's a little bit of a break, I should say, between the first 2 Test matches, but with those 3 Test matches in Adelaide, Melbourne, and Sydney being played in about 3 weeks, that's obviously going to be really tight turnarounds for the bowlers, depending on the tosses as well. It's going to have a massive impact on the series, and obviously we'll talk about England and what they're planning to do. But I suppose the other big talking point is the selection of Jake Weatherald at the top of the order. And finally, I commend the Australian selectors and George Bailey, Ronnie McDonald, and Pat Cummins is probably involved in that process as well. They have absolutely stuffed, good cricketers like Smith, McSweeney, Marnus, by playing them out of their natural positions just to, when Warner first retired, it was to get Cameron Green back into the side and still keep playing Mitchell Marsh when he was in fantastic form. They've made the right decision with picking Weatherald. 1, he's an attacking option at the top of the order. 2, he scores very differently to Usman Khawaja. And, they've actually picked a player who's in form. Obviously, when the race last summer for the Test opening spot against India occurred, Nathan McSweeney was batting at number 3, sometimes number 4 for South Australia. And then when he played Australia A, he was batting number 4, scored an 80-odd. And they're like, oh, he's in form. Let's just chuck him up to open and see how he goes. And they basically sent the kid in to fail. So I commend the selectors for learning their lesson whether Weatherall is a success or not, I still think they've made the right decision. You've got other openers waiting for a potential opportunity if something does happen to Khawaja, but I would love Weatherall to just get given the entire series to have a crack, see how he goes, and none of this, makeshift opener. When you are a specialist opener in Test cricket, that's where specialist openers need to be. So well done to the selectors. Hopefully for Jake, he gets his baggy green in Perth and he goes well. Former South Australian Redbacks cricketer, and a great story coming from the Northern Territory as well. So moved to Adelaide, and then had a tough time in Adelaide in the back end of his time in South Australia. Then chose to move to Tasmania. Didn't get many opportunities for Tasmania in his first year. Tried to move to Victoria. Tasmania held him to his contract, and he's been able to flourish ever since that point. So well done to Jake. Hope he goes well. Obviously, great that Marnus Labuschagne is back in form, and I certainly think he will be playing at number 3. I think this business of him trying to go up the order and opening is well and truly dusted. It's where he's most comfortable. It's where he's done his best work for Australia. So I'm fully expecting him to get the nod. And I suppose the other selection conundrum for the Australians is whether it's Cameron Green or Beau Webster. I think Cameron Green has done enough with the ball in the recent Shield game, and scored some handy runs with the bat as well. Made 91, I believe, in the most recent Shield game against Queensland, and they've got a pretty solid bowling attack, the Queenslanders. So, I certainly think Cam gets the nod. I think he'll have to go back down to number 6. I don't think that's a bad thing. Allows him to find his feet, and depending on how long Smithy has left, I think when Steve Smith decides to retire, then Cameron Green is the most logical person to go up to number 4. But I think him being at number 6 allows him to look after his body a little bit more. It will be interesting to see how much he bowls. You think he's only bowling maybe 8 to 10 overs a day, and to be fair, that's what he shouldn't realistically be needing to bowl any more than that. And if he's bowling more than 8 to 10 overs a day, I think it says Australia's in trouble at that point. It's extremely harsh on Beau Webster. I don't think he's done anything wrong since coming in the side. 50 on debut at the FCG, 50 in the World Test Championship final at Lords, 72 for memory at the World Test Championship final. Been able to contribute with bat, ball, and I think one thing that the Australians will miss is his catching ability. I think he's been really solid in the slips. Was able to field at second slip during the tour of the West Indies due to Steve Smith's finger injury. But I think he will get an opportunity throughout the series. I think it's just a matter of him being patient and whether anything happens to Green or any of the batters in the side. We haven't talked about Steve Smith being captain in this first Test match, and most likely the first 2 games if we're being realistic about Pat's injury. And I love it when Steve Smith is captain of Australia. I think, obviously, Sandpaper Gate was a long time ago. He's done well whenever he has captained. I believe he's captained Australia on 5 or 6 occasions when Pat hasn't been able to play. The most recent of that was the 2 Test matches in Sri Lanka. Obviously, I've been very given Smith high praise for his tactics and captaincy in the recent Sri Lanka series. Captained so well on the subcontinent, reads the game. I think Australia has missed someone like Smith being captain at points, and I personally have been very critical of Pat's tactical captaincy at points on this podcast, if you've been following me for a while. But I think Pat has obviously done a lot better the last couple of years. He's been able to grow into the role. But I think Smith is a better tactical captain, and I think that's going to work really effectively against England. I thought Cummins was way too defensive back in the 2023 series over in the UK, and I think Smith will be a calmer head in that situation and have a few different plans in place that we've compared to what we've seen from Pat. So the talk, I suppose, with that fast bowling spot with both Hazelwood and Cummins being injured is it Brendan Doggett or is it Michael Neser? Sean Abbott injured in the recent Shield game as well. It looks pretty likely that Brendan Doggett's going to get the nod. And as someone who's from Adelaide, a South Australian, I know that Doggett started his career in Queensland, but it would be great if he gets the nod. It's a great reward for a couple of years of solid effort. And the way that he was able to bowl last year, unbelievable in the Sheffield Shield final. Played 2 Sheffield Shield games this year, taken 13 wickets. So fully expecting, if he gets an opportunity, for him to do really well. I think it is quite harsh on someone like Michael Neser, who has been around this squad since about 2018, 2019, and only been able to play 2 test matches to show for it. But if Cummins and Hazelwood are both not available for the day-night game in Brisbane, then I would be seriously considering Michael Neser, and he certainly adds a bit of extra talent down the order with the bat as well. Doggett's not a terrible number 9 probably, but at least if Neser was in the side, he'd probably be batting number 8 and allow Mitchell Starc to go down the order just that one place and allow him to probably play a little bit more freely depending on who he is batting with. So yeah, I've got Weatherald in the side. I've got Marnus at 3. I've got Cameron Green at 6, and I expect Brendan Doggett to be making his test debut in Perth, which should be really exciting for Australia. And he will be the 3rd Indigenous cricketer to play for Australia behind Jason Gillespie and Scott Boland if he does get the nod. If we look over our arch enemy, England, I think there are 3 players who will determine how well they are going to do in this series, and it's not Harry Brook or Joe Root. It's Ben Stokes. His fitness has been of concern for quite some time, just with the calibre of cricketer that he is. I definitely thought he was England's best bowler in the recent India series played over in the UK, and by far looked so much more competent than Tongue and Cass. The other man who is going to play a significant role is Jofra Archer. I remember watching him when he played Big Bash before. He was this, world class cricketer. Before he was really known, to be honest, and I just thought he was electrifying with his pace and his accuracy, and I think he'll bowl well here. England would have loved to have had him last time to, work in tandem with Broad, Anderson, Ollie Robinson, but I think Jofra Archer's role is so crucial to England's chances of making a dent, particularly in Perth. If England don't get up in the first test match in Perth, in my opinion, they may as well pack their bags and go home, because I feel like it's going to get harder for them as the tour goes on. And Mark Wood is obviously the other one. Played 4 test matches here in 21-22. Took 16 wickets and took a 6 in Hobart, I believe. So obviously has experience bowling in Australian conditions. Very injury prone, hasn't played proper international cricket since February, I believe, but we saw what he was able to do in that 2023 series, bowling electrifying pace, 150 kilometres an hour. So Stokes, Archer and Wood as a bowling combination, I think is very, very potent in Australian conditions. It's just more about which of the other sort of quicks that are going to complement that attack. And I think if Archer and Wood are both fit and available for Perth, you have to play them. You've got to make a dent in Australia early on in the series, and you almost have to risk both of them potentially not playing further down the series to have a chance to win the series, in my opinion. The other seamer who they're going to go with, I fully expect that Gus Atkinson is the first choice seamer to accompany Archer and Wood. I think Atkinson will bowl really well in Australia. Bowls about 140 kilometres per hour, can move the ball both ways. The only thing is he has not been truly tested against tough opposition. I know he did play the test match at the Oval, did take 5 wickets there against India, but a lot of his early test career has been against the likes of the West Indies, who are obviously not the strongest in test cricket. So it will be interesting to see, and Sri Lanka as well, in England. So it's going to be a real test for Gus Atkinson, but I do rate him, and I think he will bowl well out here. The other part of this is whether they decide to go with Cast or Tongue. I would probably say Tongue would be more damaging, but Cast would probably be the more reliable bowler if you're looking for something consistent. If you're looking for someone to have that extra yard of pace, really awkward to face, then I'd be going for Josh Tongue. If you're looking someone to hit it back of the length and move it off the seam a little bit, then I'd be looking at Bryden Cast. I do think Bryden Cast can be hit and miss. That's every test cricketer, but there were parts of the English summer against India where he looked really good, and there were parts of the English summer where he looked extremely ordinary against a high quality Indian attack. So the wickets in Australia are obviously not very forgiving. If you miss your length, if you're too full, you'll get driven. If you're too short, you'll get cut and pulled. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what they go with, or do all of those. Well, do England play 4 quicks and completely leave out Shoaib Bashir? There's been a lot of talk about whether Shoaib Bashir is going to play. Averages roughly about 60 in Test cricket with 60 wickets, and I certainly think the young man's got potential. He's only 22, 23 years of age, so he's still relatively young in terms of his cricketing life. So would I be playing him in Perth? Probably not. Would I be looking at... I think England almost go a full-out seam attack in the first 2 test matches and then look for Adelaide, Melbourne, and potentially Sydney to play the spinner. I would say it's very unlikely that Shoaib Bashir will play both of the first 2 test matches. He might play one. It depends whether they want to play a spinner in Brisbane and how much they think that wicket's going to turn. But Nathan Lyons has been quite successful in Australia getting more of the overspin rather than the side spin, and Shoaib Bashir is developing that overspin quite nicely. So he should get some extra bounce, but it just depends on whether McCullum and Stokes have the confidence in the kid to perform a role. If they wanted to go really attacking and really strengthen their batting, then Will Jacks could certainly bat at number 8 and bowl some handy off spin. Has a test match fifer. If England are looking more to dominate Australia with the seam attack and just want a couple overs of off spin here and there, then I think a very attacking option is to play Will Jacks at number 8. Really strengthen that batting. It would mean that you'd probably have Jofra Archer and Mark Wood at 10 and 11, and both of those two can hold a stick. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do. I'm obviously expecting that the wickets are going to be a lot more lively and potent in this series to, I suppose, cause some harm to the English batting lineup. And I'm expecting that the England batting lineup will struggle with the extra pace and bounce. If I'm looking at someone like Ben Duckett, does not leave a lot of balls in Test cricket and often plays with a 45-degree bat. So I would not be surprised if Ben Duckett struggles. I really like watching Ben Duckett play, but based on what I've seen, he loves to play with a 45-degree bat, nicks a lot of balls, but he's been given the license by Brendan McCullum to do that. Zach Crawley is someone who comes off maybe 2 every 10 innings, and if he comes off twice for England in this series, then he's probably going to have a big impact in those games. We saw what he was able to do at Old Trafford a couple of years ago, and can certainly he certainly has potential to be good. We just have not seen it consistently. But once again, he's been backed in by their selection. The other major talking point would be, are they going to go with Jacob Bethel at number 3 or Ollie Pope? At this point in time, I fully expect Ollie Pope to get given the first 2 test matches, see how he goes. If he's not scoring, then I certainly think that Jacob Bethel will come into the side. He looks a good player. He batted well in New Zealand about 12 months ago. It's just a matter of whether he's going to be able to handle the pace and bounce of Australia a lot more than somewhere like New Zealand, for example. Had a bit of an interrupted English summer, only played about 2 first-class matches, still played in the IPL when England played Zimbabwe, which I think was a very strange decision. And I think he lost his place in the side from that moment. And Ollie Pope was able to go on and peel off 170, and Zach Crawley was able to do the same in that game. So if I'm going to predict the series, I think it's going to be 3-1 to Australia. I fully expect Sydney to get rained out, as it always does, which is very unfortunate. From an English point of view, I think Jofra Archer is going to be the leading wicket taker. Actually, I'm going to change my mind. I think I'm going to go Gus Atkinson. I think Gus Atkinson is more likely to play more test matches than Jofra Archer. But I think when Jofra Archer does play, he's going to be very, very potent and very, very dangerous to this Australian lineup. Harry Brook, I think, will be the leading run scorer for England. I think there's a lot of pressure on Joe Root to do well here. And I think Joe will, have a solid series, but I think Harry Brook's really ready to take on Australia, and he's got that expectation on him. So I think Harry Brook's going to do really well. I think that Marnus Labuschagne is going to be the leading run scorer for Australia. I really like what I've seen from him in the Sheffield Shield and the domestic one-day competitions. He looks happy. He looks a bit more energetic at the crease, and I think over the last couple of years before he was dropped, he was very, very defensive. But from what I've seen in Shield cricket, he looks more attacking, looking to score a lot more, and I think that's going to flow very positively into his batting. And for a leading wicket taker from Australia, I'm going to go Scott Boland. I think there's been a lot of unfair chat about Scott Boland just because England attacked him a little bit last time. Yeah, he didn't have a great test match at Headingley, but not every cricketer has a great test match every time that they played. And Boland's played about 13 test matches now, and I can say that he's probably only had 2 average games. And one of those was in India, and one of those was in England at Headingley. He certainly wasn't at his best there. The wicket that he played on in Edgbaston did not give him much in 2023, and that was a flat track for everyone. So I don't look at that one too seriously, but I think he's going to be very potent on these wickets. He knows the length, he knows the lines, he knows how to nick people off, and I'm fully expecting him, if he plays 4 test matches, to take around that 16 to 20 wickets in those 4 games. So I've got 3-1 to Australia. Scott Boland leading wicket taker, Gus Atkinson high up in the wickets as well, Harry Brook to score some runs for England, and I've gone with Marnus Labuschagne to be the leading run scorer in the series. So let me know your thoughts ahead of the Ashes, which starts on Friday. Let me know what you think the scoreline will be, who will take the most wickets for both teams, and who's going to score the most runs. So make sure you follow us on all of your social media pages, and we'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.